Hello and welcome to the Trending Now podcast for this Friday, May the 10th, 2024. I'm Louie Butko, and thank you so much for joining us as we recap the week that was on Trending Now, which you catch every Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. and 11:30 on CHCH, CHCH.com, and streaming live on our Trending Now YouTube page. Coming up on today's show, we'll talk the Maple Leafs firing Sheldon Keefe, but keeping Brendan Shanahan. We'll do that with our friend Jason Gaidola. We'll talk the entertainment world. Yes, we're going to talk Drake and Kendrick Lamar once again with our friend Laura Sebben, but we're going to start the show with the one and only Nicole Martin, host and co-creator of Trending Now. And Nicole, it's great to see you as always.
Thanks so much, Louie.
You have got to be, and this is, I guess, is the difficult thing with the Trump trial. Mm-hmm. You have been following it every day, as we've discussed on the show, every show we've had since then. How have you been handling it as somebody whose job it is to watch it, report it, pick out the facts, all that thing? How are you handling that? And secondly, how do you think the average American voter is handling? Have they already tuned this out? Because
they may have tuned it out until a couple of days ago, until Tuesday when Stormy Daniels first took the stand. That was more of a shocking testimony to hear, only because it was so salacious. It was so sexual. You're hearing about this sexual encounter, and yes, we had heard the story already before, but it was one thing to hear that Trump was sitting through it. He had to listen to Stormy Daniels' recount in 2006 when they allegedly had sex.
On the record, with the threat of perjury. That's the thing. Like, Stormy Daniels, Stephanie Clifford's is going up there and saying that this happened. And I'm willing to bet. I know the penalty of lying under oath is perjury. That could result in jail time. You know, Trump CEO Alan Weisselberg is dealing with a perjury sentence right now. He's on Rikers, right? Like, This is a legitimate crime. Trump still denies that this ever happened. He won't go on the stand and deny it.
That we know of yet. He keeps telling some other news channels that he's been doing interviews with that he's thinking about it. He's thinking about testifying.
He would have to have the worst legal team in the history to let him testify. Okay, you mentioned Stormy Daniels. Like, it wasn't as graphic. The judge sort of put a warning in and said, "Listen, we're not going to be." The prosecution, said, "We're not going to be talking about descriptions of genitalia. We're not going to be going into."
She pushed the limits.
She pushed the limits. How so?
The limits. Well, she, for one, talked about the fact that Trump was not wearing a condom when they had sex. Does that have anything to do with the actual criminal case at hand? Maybe a little bit, because it just proves that this is a story that Trump definitely would not want to get out there, especially after the Access Hollywood tape had just come out, because it could sway female voters in particular away from him. However, this case is about bookkeeping. This is the main issue. The criminal issue in this case is the fact that it was written down wrong. They were saying it was really a hush money payment that he had Stormy Daniels paid off by Michael Cohen. It was to interfere with the election. Yes. But it's bookkeeping is the criminal charge, that it was written down wrong in his books.
Campaign finance violation.
Exactly.
Campaign fraud is what they're calling it.
Yeah.
Because you could have paid her off. No, you could have said, here's $130,000, but this is a campaign expense. And that's why, like, the Stormy Daniels stuff is interesting, and yes, it's cringy. You know, Trump opens the door in his satin pajamas, and, you know, she goes to the washroom, he's just in his boxers on the magazine and what she did with the magazine, and how he very quickly brought up Ivanka in the same kind of situation. I think this is, I'm not sure how important all those little details is, but it is important to say, like, she remembers this. Like, she remembers it. She remembers a lot of the details. And the big thing about those salacious details I've heard this week is that never once did the Trump team say, objection, this isn't relevant. To the point where the judge was saying, like, you know what, that was a bit too much information. We're going to strike that from the record.
So instead, what they did was file a motion for a mistrial. Not once, but twice now. They've asked Judge Merchan to say, you know what, this has pushed it too far. Some of the things that she said they cannot recover from. So again, like the condom situation, the fact that there was some spanking involved, like it just, and you mentioned the whole whole situation with Ivanka, it just got to be too much and it's gone too far that they can't come back, is what the defense is trying to say. But the judge has already said no, they're continuing with the trial.
Which, I mean, that's one aspect of it, but you find a friendly appeal judge who thinks, you know what, maybe it was a little too prejudicial and overly gratuitous, is how the defense described it. The prosecution, meanwhile, defended its questioning and Daniels' details of this, saying that ultimately this happened, and this is what happened, and we need this to prove our point that it was very damaging if this information came out when that Access Hollywood tape. And
I want to go back to something you had said earlier, that Stormy Daniels has not been lying. She went as far under oath to say that she's not wanting to pay back and won't pay back $500,000 that she owes Trump in a defamation suit that she lost. So she was ordered by a judge to pay that back, and she's saying no. And she said, I hate him. I hate him. I want him in jail. They even brought up some of her posts on X. But I think that's interesting. So it goes both ways. It could be, great for the prosecution that she is, in her own way, credible. She's telling the truth. She's telling the truth even when it's going to affect her under oath by saying she's not going to pay this back. But then at the same time, for the defense, her saying she's going to violate a court order to pay back Trump $500,000. What else is she capable of doing?
She hates them.
Yes.
I think it was
she's going to flush the orange turd down the toilet. You hear that too?
MSNBC, CNN, I forget which one, but they said it was the Trump's defense team. The way they went after Daniels was a sluts and nuts defense. Was that this lady is a porn star, she's paid for sex, and
then the nuts part,
the nuts, she thinks she's a medium,
she's talking to ghosts, she's gonna be
but the slut shaming I thought was pretty interesting, just because I mean, here we are, if you're going to be sensitive to what this woman does for a living, then we also need to reconcile that with the fact that this is what is alleged to have happened with the former president of the United States, with his wife at home with a very young, if not newborn baby, in his 18-year-old son, Barron. And that's why I think I've heard it's why it seems like the prosecution is going so hard into these details, and it's peppered in between.
And the defense too. I think I don't really care if she's been in 200 adult films. The defense wanted to bring that up, right?
Year, I think. 200 last year, I think.
That's too many.
I don't know.
There's only 365 days in the year, Louie. What on earth? This girl's a hard worker. Okay, but at the same time, though, they're talking about how she was using the situation to leverage herself and to make more money. Like, I actually didn't know this until this week. She had an entire strip club tour saying "Make America Horny Again." What?
She had
so she's done a lot, but she also mentioned she did interviews for free too because she wanted the story out.
She's very different. Obviously, it's funny because she's remembered in this Frozen in Time 2006 picture. She obviously looks a little different. That was 20 years ago.
That's her recently.
But I just find it interesting. And in between this salacious details, here you have the prosecution bringing up people who are still loyal to Donald Trump.
Yes.
And saying, that was odd. This was a little bit different. Hope Hicks. She's a big one. That Access Hollywood tape changed everything. The witness they had today, another assistant to Donald Trump's, Madeleine Westerhouse, a former Trump White House aide. These are people who, despite everything, they still like Donald Trump. Hope Hicks broke down on the stand. Was it Rhonda something? One of his bookkeepers, the accounts receivables, breaking down and showing that these people don't want to hurt Donald Trump. Yes, Stormy Daniels does. Yes, Michael Cohen does.
But at the same time, these people who know and love him have voiced their concerns and have voiced clearly that he would have known where that money was going. And that is at the crux of the case. Not all the sex going on in particular, but the fact that he would have known where that money was going. That is what could potentially convict Donald Trump.
Meanwhile, the classified documents case was postponed indefinitely by a Trump-approved judge down in Florida. Jack Smith dealing with that. We talked a lot about this show about Fani Willis and where that trial is going. I heard this last week. The 2024 U.S. presidential election is less than 6 months away.
I know.
It was 6 months on Sunday. And here we are. This trial might come to an end, though. Prosecutors say that they expect to call just 2 more witnesses, potentially laying the ground for arresting their case next week.
Exactly. End of next week. Michael Cohen, big one on Monday. So we're going to be talking about this on Friday, Louie.
Yeah, absolutely. 1 week from today, catch up on everything that's happening. And who knows? Like you said, the prosecution might rest, defense might rest. Who knows what happens there? I want to talk to you about Rafah and Israel, because a really interesting week that started with what seemed for the first time some excitement or some interest that a ceasefire.
Yeah.
Hamas was obviously premature. Israel didn't agree with the wording on the ceasefire. What's the latest? What are we hearing from Israel and Rafah?
Oh, it's so tense.
Yeah.
It is so tense right now, and you know things are bad when the U.S., seemingly their only ally really in the world at this point with their war, is now criticizing the way that they're handling the operation in Rafah by saying and threatening that they will no longer be shipping weapons like 2,000-pound and 500-pound bombs to Israel. Netanyahu's defiant. He's saying he'll stand alone if he has to. He really doesn't care about the United States, is how it sounds. But it's really scary. Here it was like this, it sounded like positive news. Hamas agreed to a ceasefire. Okay, great. But we don't know the terms of that ceasefire. We don't know what the deal was that was negotiated in Egypt. So now Israel has sent back their delegation to try and continue negotiations. But from what a lot of people's sources have said, it comes down to time. So it sounded as though Hamas wanted a 12-week ceasefire, and to Israel that would just signal the end of the war, and they were calling for a 6-week ceasefire. Again, this is all just hearsay.
Yeah.
Nothing has been, put out to the public in detail just yet. So yeah, we're waiting on that, but it just so happened that at that same time that the ceasefires agreed to, Israel decides that it would bring all of its tanks and start surrounding Rafah, and this is where we're at.
And that was the one thing, was that even if they had agreed to whatever they said the operation in Rafah was still going to go ahead.
Like a million civilians are there.
Some 1.4 million Palestinians, which is over half of Gaza's population, has sought refuge in Rafah. Meanwhile, Rafah says it's the last stronghold of the Hamas militant group. I thought the U.S. not sending weapons was pretty huge.
Yeah.
I mean, they have sent hundreds of thousands of weapons already. This seems to be...
But Biden acknowledged,
they're not saying it, but this seems to be a red line.
It's in the sand, yeah.
The line is in the sand on this one.
But Biden really came out and acknowledged, almost for the first time, that, these bombs that they've been sending over, have they been used to kill civilians? Yes. And the population city centers that they're hitting. And like you mentioned, people are in Rafah because they have nowhere else to go. They have been there. And one thing that really, really shocked me was the border, shutting down the border. So even if you're wanting to go and invade and try and target maybe a ground attack on Hamas, 1.4 million Palestinians are there. Are we not going to give them food? Are we not going to bring in fuel so that we can, charge up ventilators and we can keep incubators going for newborn babies? Like it's getting really sick and twisted. This is my own, obviously, personal opinion on it. And I'm sure millions around the world feel the same. Yeah. But wow, to see the footage each and every day of what's going on it's horrifying.
And I think that's an important aspect, is that we see a lot of footage that doesn't make it to air.
We can't show it.
That we can't show. A lot of footage that is sent from people on the ground in Rafah. The World Food Program says that they'll run out of food for distribution in southern Gaza by tomorrow, unless more aid arrives. The UN General Assembly overwhelmingly passed a resolution today to give Palestine more rights and privileges, and called on the Security Council to favorably reconsider Palestine's request to become the 194th UN member. Mm-hmm. It is worth acknowledging the war began on October 7th when Hamas attacked 1,300 Israelis.
And what about the hostages?
That's
at the root of this too, Louie.
There's still about 100 hostages in the reign of about 30 more.
Yeah, and like 36 they think are dead.
Yeah.
But the hostages' families. It's like every day now they're in Tel Aviv, like they're going to Netanyahu's house, they're blocking roads, they're saying enough. Like the more you slaughter the people in Rafah and within Gaza, the less likely hostages are going to come back alive. The only way to do so is a ceasefire agreement. And where are we at? So they're calling in Israel for a ceasefire. They're asking Netanyahu, but it's also his war cabinet.
It's very, and like that was
they
the
have
thing
their own thing that they want
prior to the war too. I mean, that's another thing that people may not remember is that the Netanyahu, first of all, Netanyahu wasn't prime minister for a few years there in the middle, got back in.
Oh, what? Because of his legal
because
drama?
Of a very right wing, and it's a very like heavy like pro, desettlement type thing, right? Like, it's scary stuff. Obviously, it's been going on for a while, and then meanwhile in the background, it's like, oh yeah, there's also that war in Ukraine that's happening too. Yeah. So it's scary times for sure.
Absolutely.
Big Mother's Day plans. I know this is your second Mother's.
What a segue! What
I have to get you out of here. I have to get you out of here.
They're just telling me get out of here.
I have to get you out of here because Laura Sebben will yell at me if I keep you too long, which I probably already have. Big Mother's Day plans for you?
Yeah, we're having my family over at my
cool.
house.
There you go.
So super nice. We might go and check out the lake or something, go for a little picnic. Yeah, that's about it. Low key.
Mia's a little older now, right?
She
so she's like, it was pretty newbornish.
Yeah, at
right?
the time.
Like, at the time
she had no idea what was going on.
Well, enjoy.
Thank you so much, Louie. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right, yeah. What a transition. That's what we do here on this show. We do great transitions from topic to topic. All right, we're going to get into some sports news with Jason Gaidola in just a second, including the fact that the Ottawa Senators are turning to Travis Green to end a 7-year playoff drought. The team announced this week that it has hired Green as the club's new head coach and signed him to a 4-year contract. Now Green takes over from interim head coach Jacques Martin, who coached the team after DJ Smith was fired in December. Martin, who previously coached the club from 1996 to 2004, is staying on as an advisor. Steve Staios, I'm going to call him a friend of the show, Steve Staios, because I know him personally, said after speaking to several highly qualified candidates, it became clear that Travis is the right fit to lead our group. As we've routinely stated, developing a winning culture is paramount to our aspiration of achieving sustained success. Travis has a burning desire to win, is passionate about teaching and holding his players to a very high standard. I was really convinced it was going to be John Gruden, current Toronto Marlies head coach, former Hamilton Bulldogs, but hey, Jason Gaidola, John Gruden might be near the top of the list of the Toronto Maple Leaf head coach job.
Wouldn't that be something?
It would be something, especially because like I have his number. Like I texted him after he got the job from the Marlies. I was like, "Grudes, congrats, buddy! Great to see you back in Canada." Louie, thanks. Thanks, all the best. I was like, it'd be cool if I could text him as like, "Congratulations, next head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs." Like that. Selfishly, I hope it's John Gruden. It probably won't be though.
Did you actually text him that?
No, I haven't texted him yet. I texted him when he got the Marlies job. I texted him when he got the Marlies job.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should text him that. Why not? Why not?
I don't want to jinx anything. Sheldon Keefe, were you surprised to see him let go this week?
No, it's part of it. This is the same cycling routine that you see when a franchise is starting to flounder, right? Because the Leafs
starting to.
They're starting. No. Let's be fair.
1967.
Well, it's the hardest trophy to win in sports.
I believe it, but 23 teams.
When I say floundering, I mean they're starting to flounder because I think the team is supposed to be at the mature stage of their growth.
Absolutely.
I mean, a couple of years ago they were the young team, still very exciting to watch. But not as experienced. But they got a couple of years under their belts, and now is the time to where expectations are always high. But they're as high as ever, and I think also too. I mean, he was Dubas's hire. New management comes in.
Treliving gave him a 2-year extension going into this season. That hasn't even kicked in yet. So that was the thing. Like today, Keith Pelly, Brendan Shanahan, Brad Treliving were there, and I couldn't make out all the questions. But one of them that I would have liked to have asked had I been in the room is Brad Treliving. Like, how do you sit here today and justify signing that deal with Sheldon Keefe before last season? Like, what justification do you have for it?
My apologies. I didn't catch it all, but no one asked him that question.
Not specifically. Like, it was more Pelly, Shanahan, which I think a lot of the blame, Shanahan took full responsibility, says it's on me, that's fine, whatever. You know how I feel about Brendan Shanahan. I have not hid my feelings on this show. I was on the sports desk on Sunday. I gave myself like 30 seconds with Adam to go on a little rant about it. I have no idea why Brendan Shanahan is still the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Does he deserve to be?
That's hard to say. I mean, because it's hard to evaluate an executive, even from a fan's perspective. How do you evaluate what kind of job an executive is doing just based off his hire of general manager, based off his hire, how they're hiring the head coach? I mean, sure, I could see that, but I mean, I'm sure there's more to it at the job where the heads up top at MLSE are like, well, you know, there could be something Brandon's doing really good for the organization that we just don't know about. And I think about those things. And usually for an executive, whether it's the president or the general manager, those type of jobs, you kind of need a couple of years, even though I know Brandon's been there for 10.
10.
He's been
10.
there for 10.
This will be 11, by the way.
Yeah, good point.
Not that, whatever. Whatever.
Yeah, they need more time to really see the full scope of it. So he's dealt with Kyle Dubas. Gave him the job over Mark Hunter. I know my sources back in London. They're not very happy about that. They're still pissed off about that.
I believe it.
But the Dubas thing did not pan out. At least it didn't pan out for winning a Stanley Cup. And now I think I think executives, front office people get a second wind at trying to change things around. So. Who knows? I mean, that press conference was a whole lot of nothing. I mean, yeah, we'll look at everything. Of course you're going to look at everything. Don't you look at everything every year? So I think it was a lot of just hot air. Just it's the year-end availability. Keith Pelly making an appearance obviously says something, but
he wants to win.
He wants to win. But I mean, it says something. Is it much? I don't know.
Is it something though? Everybody wants to win. I would be shocked if he had gone up there and said, you know what? As long as the shareholders of Bell, BCE, and Rogers Enterprises are happy, and that's why. And that's why at the end of the day, for Brendan Shanahan, hey buddy, like. He's made MLSE's value from 2014 when they hired him to now has probably shot up hundreds of millions of dollars, right? He rebranded the Maple Leaf, like that was him. He, put a focus on the Centennial game. He brought in Legends Row, and Lance Hornby did a great job of summarizing all these things he's done. He's focused on the next generation of Maple Leafs fans who are not going to be able to afford games once they're an adult. Sorry, kids, you're not going to be able to afford to go there once you're a grown-up. But he's done a lot of things, I think, for the business well. For Joe Schmo, Maple Leaf fan of 32 years, what the hell do I care?
But someone in his position, that's probably the core, I guess, from the heads up top of MLSE. That's
the ivory tower, as they say.
That's what they expect is doing all those other things. Yeah, that will keep your job because all they're going to do is like, well, Brendan, you got to hire another general manager. I mean, maybe it would get to a point where if the GMs are just continuously failing, I could see a change. But really, the actual success of the team is going to fall on the head coach, the general manager, and the players. And that's just how it's always pretty much been, right? The president can be a losing team for like 20 years. They can keep the same president for as long as they can, as long as they feel the operations are moving the way it's moving, right?
But if you don't have results. And I've gotten in trouble. I've gotten in trouble with this.
It's hard to judge it to judge a president. A GM and coach, yes, because it's direct.
But the president is the one who hires. The president is the one who hires these people who make the decisions.
I think sports media and maybe even sports fans, I think you're getting a little too obsessed where it's like, it's kind of like the NBA. President of basketball operations or president of operations where it's like they're the new GM, which is a lot of truth to that. But there's a little bit of, I think there's an inoculation, a safe bubble to kind of stay away from that, right? To stay away from, they separate direct responsibility. There's a separation there. I can see it. I can feel it.
I would say 10 years of results, 10 years of no results on the ice. It's, listen, I've said this, I have lifelong memories of being a Leafs fan, and there are special moments to me. I don't know what it would take for me to change my loyalties, if ever. I've joked about it. I've said like, if the Sabres ever make the playoffs, maybe I'll start cheering for them. Like they're a closer team. I've seen more Sabres games in Buffalo than I have Leafs games in Toronto, right? Like
I've said this to many people in the newsroom, to Bubba O'Neill and everyone, Dave Roberts. I just said, I think I want to conduct a bunch of researchers to study the PTSD that Leaf fans have, because when I listen to yourself and others talk, it's like,
fine,
my God,
guys. It's
trauma.
fine.
Like,
I'm fine.
It's okay. Leafs got a great team. It's hard to win.
Everything's going to be fine.
Hey, better luck next year.
Oh, shut up. You're working on a pretty cool story today.
Yes.
CBC, the first to report this today, that the WNBA, after some will they or won't they, are going to come to Toronto. Pretty exciting news in the sports world in the six.
Absolutely good. And congratulations to Toronto. I mean, as long as I've been, even when I was living there a couple of years ago, there was even talk then saying, like, why doesn't Toronto have a WNBA team? We should have one. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's going to be, it'll have some success. For sure they're going to get fans. You saw what they did at the 2 preseason games. Basketball is a pretty good sport to sell. Plus, it's the league's been around long enough where you're able to maybe be familiar with a lot of the players, right?
Especially now
with Caitlin Clark already breaking through, and you have a face. The league has a face, right? And I think that's
no disrespect to like the Angel Reeses or the the players who have come before, the Sue Birds even. I mean, the league's been around for a while. Caitlin Clark is one of those people, like a phenomenon, who has taken the league by storm.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, like, I don't know what gives the certain star athletes that special stuff. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I even thought like Caitlin Clark, I mean, she was exciting to watch, right? She's a great shooter. She had a kind of bravado that maybe you didn't see
swagger.
Yeah, you didn't really see that much, and it's kind of, I think the timing of it all is good for women's basketball, and on top of the fact that the WNBA, they've increased payroll.
Yep. They just got a charter deal
for chartered flights, which is something they've been wanting for a long time, and they have a TV deal to renew in 2025. So with Toronto coming in, the stars are kind of aligning right now, and they'll have a report that it looks like Coca-Cola Coliseum.
I've been calling it Rico all day too.
I always call it Rico. But anyways,
Coca-Cola,
that's probably the suitable venue because a lot of the teams are playing in smaller venues, and then for select games though they could expand to the bigger arenas. And on top of that too, you remember like the NBA they own 50% of the league, right? Yeah. I think they give them an endowment of $15 million a year, which could be enough to kind of help offset losses because there still hasn't been a profitable outcome yet for the team, but viewership's going up, and I think things are starting to turn for the WNBA. Toronto just came in at the right time.
Meanwhile, PWHL having success. They're playing their playoff games at Coca-Cola Coliseum after moving from Maple Leaf Gardens, the old what's it, Metropolitan University? What is it? It's
Toronto Metropolitan University.
Yeah, it is TMU. It is TMU.
TMU.
Yeah. So, and I was at the opener. It was a great atmosphere, great energy. I can only imagine what the playoffs are like at Coca-Cola Coliseum. You got big plans for the weekend, my friend.
You coming
back to the Hammer?
I totally forgot. No,
Mother's Day.
Yes, sorry. Okay. Mother's Day. I almost, thank God. I was thinking about it and then I forgot about it. My mind's always on a scramble. But probably I'm looking at Sunday.
All right.
Visit the Fam Jam. So, won't be too crazy. But
relax on Saturday then.
You as well, man.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for doing this. All right. James Gaidola, my thanks to him for joining me on today's show. And still had Laura Sebben going to be by with everything going on in the world of entertainment, including recapping the Met Gala. We'll hear some of her favorite outfits. I'm sure she'll have some opinion on that. And then the latest on the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef, which got violent this week, maybe, after a security guard was shot outside Drake's house. We'll get to that. But I did want to get to some world news here on Trending Now as another humanitarian crisis continues to unfold in South America. Authorities in Brazil say at least 100 people have been killed due to disastrous flooding in the country's southern region. Hundreds others reportedly missing, and the area's airport shut down as it remains underwater, all while rescue operations are working to save as many lives as possible. Meanwhile, state officials are dealing with blocked roads, halted air traffic, and the city's main airport has lost much of their runways and services suspended. Authorities are aiming to work fast as more rainfall expected through the weekend. Some climate experts have linked the extreme rain to a heat wave caused by this year's El Nino, which is a weather phenomenon tied to the warming of the ocean surface and moving into the eastern Pacific. And they maintain that as global warming intensifies, El Nino and its effects will lead to more unpredictable weather. And the sign of the times just how bad it is in Brazil. Brazil's government urged the country's soccer officials to suspend all tournaments on Friday because of the floods and more heavy rain expected in the Rio Grande do Sul state in the weekend, which could worsen the situation for millions, as more than 250,000 remain homeless and are not expected to get home for another few weeks. Just another effect of climate change. Yep. Laura Sebben, who joins us in studio. Want to talk to you about Drake and Kendrick Lamar. It got violent this week, allegedly. No ties. Sunday night, Kendrick Lamar puts out a video that features Drake's house.
Yeah, but if you live in the GTA, you know where Drake lives.
Okay.
I know where Drake lives without Kendrick Lamar having to tell me.
Yeah.
I've seen TikToks of people driving past Drake's house.
3 incidents this week now. The shooting, which obviously his security guard taken to hospital.
And we still haven't gotten an update on his condition.
A break-in, an attempted break-in the last couple of nights. Is there any truth to the rumors that the record companies are trying to quash this at all?
I believe there's truth to that the record companies obviously would want to stop things because obviously Drake's record company isn't a fan of this. But I think even Kendrick's might be a little listen, as much as you hate the guy, he's the biggest hip hop artist in the world right now. And we're not trying to, risk your career, risk other stuff that the label might be doing on this. But
what's happened this week?
Nothing.
No new songs.
Drake posted on his Instagram story he was watching a movie, and I'm trying to remember what movie it was, but it was talking about nobody's gonna care when you're dead and whatever. And I was
okay.
But
little catty at that point.
I think probably the stuff that we saw happen at his house was probably fan related. I don't think Kendrick had anything to do with it directly, but yeah, it probably had to do with fans being you know what, you're right. To quote Kendrick Lamar, this guy is a bitch. Let's do something about it, So I can see fans taking things into their own hands based on
fans of Kendrick Lamar taking things. Yeah. Obviously Kendrick Lamar is not sending somebody to Drake's house.
Because to note, the song that he put out with the image of Drake, an above head of Drake's house, was called Not Like Us, and basically just said Drake, you're not a black guy, you're not with us, people don't like you.
People don't like you.
There's always that contention.
Don't like Drake?
No, I like Drake. I did see a funny post where somebody was yes, Kendrick bodied Drake in these disses, but we need Drake. Drake puts out bangers after bangers, and he puts out the summer songs.
Speaking of bangers, let's get to that. Summer songs. I want to put you on the spot because after months and months of teasing,
not months, 7 weeks. It's technically 2 months.
2 months. Post Malone and Morgan Wallen just dropped the song of the summer. You know it's going to be
huge. What would I know about that?
You're a big Morgan Wallen fan, are you not? Oh, really? I thought you did. I thought you really liked Morgan Wallen. I thought you really liked the way he sings and his personality.
No, oh God, his personality? No, definitely
not. Him throwing chairs off of rooftops
it's my dream, man.
In Tennessee. Despite how you feel about Morgan Wallen, your early review on Post Maloney and Morgan Wallen's new tune.
Listen, the 30-second snippet went viral for a reason. It's catchy.
Song of the summer catchy?
I don't know if it's song of the summer because for me, summer songs have to be summer-y.
That's not summery?
Well, it's country, but they're singing about a breakup
song,
and how they're both kind of suck to each other, the boyfriend and girlfriend.
You sound like someone who's listened to the song a couple of times.
Well, I had to write a reel about it, but I won't lie. I did listen to it more than once on my way into work today. I was trying to see if I liked it, see if it was an earworm. It's an earworm. I can get behind it. I can get behind it.
Okay.
I can get behind it.
I think it's a song of the summer.
Okay.
I know because
I guess it depends on the charting, right? I guess that's technically what the song of the summer is.
I think so, but it's just like the amount of people who had it like on their Instagram stories today and was like banger, like all that kind of stuff, like. Just like me, like my buddies who just like golf and drinking beers on weekends. Like it's one of those songs. Like usually it's Morgan Wallen anyway that's playing like
that's
on
true.
the Bluetooth.
When it's not Drake.
When it's not Drake.
Drake's had his fair share of summer songs.
He's had his fair share for sure. Let's talk about the Met Gala. Why is this still a thing? Because we're looking at an outfit of...
This is Tyla. She's wearing custom Balmain, and it is a dress that was molded to her exact body shape with sand.
Oh, okay. That's why she's holding the hourglass, I guess?
Sands of Time to go with the Garden of Time theme.
Garden of Time. Kim Kardashian's outfit was a little strange. I mean, this is like... I thought we were past this, like...
I know everybody was giving a grief for it.
Jessica Biel was took a bath in 20 pounds of Epsom salts the night before to fit. I thought we were past this like extreme dieting.
Not.
Okay,
we're not.
We're
It's always been be thin, but like to different extents. So for the last little bit, it's been like be thin but curvy, and the Kardashians were like really great embodiments of that. Like they had the small waist, but they had like big curves on top, big curves on bottom. But now, I don't know if you saw Kylie, the new trend is like be thin. So like the new trend is like for girls is to show your like collar, like the bones here.
Yeah.
Like, so you can see hers a little bit, but she's also, this is just what she looks like. And she's like 20 years old. So 20-year-olds normally look like this. and then you lose that.
Was Kylie wearing a bit of a sheer thing? It was kind of, was that Kylie or?
No, I don't think that was sheer. It was like it was like a cream.
Oh, it wasn't.
It was a cream dress. But yeah, like, so now Kylie, she looks really like thin, like here. She still has her like her booty, but it's like, it's this new like thinness like in the chest and the arms.
I saw the Kim Kardashian video and it was like this, and like there was like the prep of her getting ready. It was like extreme corset, and it was just like, yep, okay. It's a lot of breathing, and then even like she was wearing a little sweater. I don't know if that had something to do with
it
like the way she was.
It was part of the look from the designer because that was. I don't know if it was directly off runway, but they had similar pieces on the runway. I can't remember what designer she was wearing with that same
What was your
cardigan.
favorite look? This one right here. Is this one? Did Bill know this, or is this why?
Well, this was what we picked for for when we covered it on Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm trending now because that's what we do on this show.
This was my favorite look, and then Elle Fanning. We don't have a picture of that one, but Elle Fanning also was in a custom Balmain look, and hers was like ice. So it literally looked like she was wearing ice.
The rules of this: you have to be invited by Vogue editor Anna Wintour,
or by like a fashion house,
But she
can veto that.
There's no phones allowed usually. She tries to make it like a non-social media thing.
Yeah, but
and then she does the seating plan.
Yes, the scene plan's like serious.
Drama, like to avoid any this. You don't want to ruin the party. So what happens? Is it like it's a gala? So you go in, it's a fancy food, all that stuff.
Yeah, but it's kind of just like hobnobbing, right? So everybody sits, they eat a little bit, they watch like whoever the performer of the night is. This year it was Ariana Grande. She performed a couple songs.
Yes, and
I don't know if she performed Yes, and I saw that she sang Into It. Remember that song
back in the day?
From back in the day?
Oh, good for her.
And then I don't know what else she sang, and then they just kind of like mingle, and then they leave, and then they get changed, and then they go to the after parties, which are also like super fashion.
What would you pay to go to to experience the whole thing?
I don't know if I don't know. It'd be so cool.
You've always wanted to like cover like a red carpet, like like an Oscar, like an Oscars, Emmys. Like
I just think it would be so cool. I love celebrities so much, and
just to be amongst them.
Well, I just think this would be a cool one to go to because I know everybody this year was. Every year there's like a thing, and now this year it was like it feels like Hunger Games. Like we're all in our districts watching the Capitol. I'm like, get over it. It's been going on for like 30 years. Get over it.
Yeah. That's how you really feel.
But yeah, I just think to see some of these pieces in person would be like to see this in person would have been incredible because everything looks better in person than it does on camera and that's sometimes how they decide what they wear. Like, is it photographing well? I know Cardi B, she wore this huge like black dress, but she had asked people on X, like earlier, should I do green or black? There was a green version, and everybody was like, do the green. It's the Garden of Time. That's the theme. The green's better. Black's kind of boring for the Met Gala. But then they ended up going with the black because apparently the green just was not photographing well. And the whole point of this is to be a showcase for the designers.
10,000 cameras
and it was kind of similar to the color that's on the carpet. Which
like an
also,
aqua blue green.
if this just goes to show you how much I pay attention to the Met Gala. I don't know if you heard that there was some like AI. The set's gonna come crashing down.
They're trying to like wrap it up.
There were some AI images of Katy Perry going around that like duped people into thinking that she was there. And I saw that image like early in the night, and I was like, oh, this is AI. The carpet doesn't look like that this year. Like I knew. I'm like, the carpet doesn't have red on it this year. I know that.
Big plans for Mother's Day? Are you spoiling the mother?
Are we spoiling the mother? We don't really do that in our house. My mom is not a big
About
gift
me type
receiver.
thing?
Like
Or you're
gift
just not a
giving and
good
gift
gift?
receiving are like very low on her love language. So she picked up something that her mom used to do, which was to make homemade Belgian waffles for brunch for her grandparents at the time. And then once her grandparents passed, my mom took the mantle on to do it for our grandparents. So she makes Belgian waffles. We like obviously help.
Sure,
like we
okay.
cut up the fruits and
Happy Mother's
prepare
Day,
everything.
Mom. Now get in the
But
kitchen
we do
is
have
what it
gifts
sounds
for her.
like.
I won't say what, just in case she tunes in.
Hanging
but-
baskets. That's my go-to gift.
Oh, that'll be what my no-no shows up with.
Grandma and my meme and my mom are getting a hanging basket.
My nonna and my no-no,
So
my
if
dad's.
they're watching, they're getting a hanging basket, which actually won't be a surprise because they've gotten it every year
Oh, yeah, that's
for the
what I
last
mean.
20 years.
Like I will be shocked if my no-no doesn't show up to our house on Sunday with a hanging basket. I'll be like, what happened?
Something's obviously
Where did it
very
go?
wrong. I just want to give a shout out. By speaking of family, I want to give a shout out to my little goddaughter Lucy, who was confirmed last night. Big Catholic thing growing up.
Yeah.
So she's my goddaughter. So it was funny because it was the same church that she was baptized in.
Okay.
So it was like 13 years later, and just me feeling old. And it was like half my elementary school teachers were there.
Oh,
and like
that's
it had
the
been,
worst,
it had been
eh?
18 years. It's even worse now that I'm on television. Oh, there's the guy, there's the TV star.
See, I don't care so much about like high school, but I feel like in elementary school you really connected with your teachers. So when I
they were like your parents. You were like,
when I run into them in public and they don't recognize me,
You're
it's
shut?
like a shot to the heart. I'm like, I could
on
rattle
that
off your names.
Yeah, my grade 4 teacher was sitting in front of me, like in the pew there, and then she like turned around. She looked at me. She's like, super fan. We watch religiously, and one of my students grew up like and now a big. I'm like, no, it's
Don't do that.
it's CHCH. Come on.
Don't do that either.
I'm just
It's a
kidding.
big deal. You're
I'm
on
just
TV.
kidding. I'm just kidding. I love my job. Speaking of which, you got a job to do, getting the show ready for 7. So thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Louie.
My thanks to Laura Sebben for joining me today. This is a fun one. I had fun today. I didn't even rush you out of here. My thanks to Laura Sebben for joining me. My thanks to Jason Gaidola as well. Nicole Martin. Always appreciate her insights. And thank you to Mike Corsten for directing today's show as well. Hey, if you want to follow along everything Trending Now does on social media, make sure to follow us at Trending Now CHCH on Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. And while you're liking and subscribing, make sure to do so with our CHCH podcasts, which you can find wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or you can go to chch.com/podcast. From all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louie Butko. Have a great weekend.